I'm gonna rank my heavyweights for you. I have number one, the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury. I was on different outlets out where you are, Lady Chan, in the UK, the Undefeated podcast, many others, and they thought I was smoking crack, thinking that the Gypsy King was exactly what everyone sees he is right now. I have him as number one. I got Usyk as number two. By the way, I picked Usyk over Joshua, for those of you who forget, just to remind you. Number three, believe it or not, this is where it gets really tricky for me. It's open season at this point, but I will tell you this: I've got Andy Ruiz higher than I have Anthony Joshua, and I know a lot of
fail.
I know a lot. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this.
Epic fail.
Here is my reasoning, Lady Chan. I look at the two fights. Okay, Anthony Joshua got brutally knocked out in the first fight. He did not really impress me very much in the rematch with an overweight guy who underperformed in Andy Ruiz Jr. If I take those two fights and put them head to head, Andy Ruiz Jr. wins that matchup. So my top fives is actually going to surprise people, because at number three, I still have Deontay Wilder. Okay. Number four, I have Andy Ruiz Jr. And number five, in case you didn't notice his face on the bottom right corner of the screen, you see him right there.
Joe Joyce.
That's the big man. That's the juggernaut. That's Mr. Joe Joyce. I see him giving AJ a ton of problems. I see him giving Dillian White a ton of problems. But why don't we go right to you, since you say I failed the test? I'm the teacher. I'm the teacher. So please let me know. Please let me know how I failed, Lady Chan. Before I do that, I got to big up Remy, who came with the super sticker. Remy, thank you so much. And we'll just big up everybody else in the chat. Slide Tendencies, No Power, Raw Boxing TV, Chicano Prophet, Lisa Balls is in the house, and
Bales.
many others.
Lisa Bales.
Sorry, Lisa Bales. Lisa Bales, my fault. Lisa Bales.
All right.
Lady Chan, go ahead.
Everybody's list is up to theirs, really. Do you know what I mean? To be fair. But so number one, I have Tyson Fury. Number two, I have Alexander Usyk. Number three, I have Anthony Joshua. Number four, I have Deontay Wilder. I have Deontay Wilder. Number five, I have Dillian White. Number six, I'd have Andy Ruiz, or they could flip over. Andy Ruiz could be five. I know it's top five, but Andy Ruiz could be five and Dillian White six.
Got it. Joe Habib.
This is tricky, because you can look at some of these matchups and you can say that Deontay Wilder that knocked Tyson Fury down twice in that fourth round, you can make an argument that maybe no one else would have gotten up. So you could say he would beat a lot of guys. But then again, you got to look at what fighters have done as well. So you got to kind of struggle with that a little bit and weigh that, what you think and who could beat a fighter based upon what they've done, right? So I would put Fury at number one. I would put Usyk at number two. The whole thing with Joshua and Wilder, it's tough for me, because I don't know if Wilder will ever be the same after those two fights back to back. I think Joshua still may have more in the tank, because the Andrew Ruiz fight, I don't think that was as bad as a beating as the two beatings that Wilder took. And I think Wilder left a lot more of himself in the ring than Anthony Joshua did. And another thing I do like about Anthony Joshua is he's not as stubborn as Deontay Wilder. I think he's coachable. He can learn, and he's willing to adapt. And I've seen him at least try to make adjustments in fights. Wilder is just so stubborn that, I'm going to just do what I want to do. I'm going to land that right hand. And with all due respect to Malik Scott, I didn't see much of a difference, with his input and his him being behind the behind the scenes, being the trainer. I didn't see much of an improvement, to be very honest with you, right? So I'm going to have to put Joshua at number three, and I'll put Wilder at 4, and I think Joe Joyce could beat Dillian White. Is another dilemma I fall myself back into, but Dillian White has done more than Joe Joyce. So based off of what Dillian White's done, I would have to put him at 5. But if Joyce were to fight Dillian White, I think Joyce would definitely be a live underdog in that fight.
I could be list of, if we're doing a list of who could beat who, the list would be very much a different list.
Yeah.
We can't go on future predictions. Reason why I put Anthony Joshua at number 3 and Wilder at number 4, because at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua is 2-time unified heavyweight champion. So he has to go before Wilder.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you think Wilder will beat him. He's accomplished more as a heavyweight.
I agree.
He's only 2-time, with all due respect, heavyweight world champion, because he insists on having rematch clauses and got knocked out by Andy Ruiz Jr.
No, he didn't get knocked out. It was a TKO. There's a difference between a knockout and a TKO. There's a TKO which he got up every single time and it was waved off. And there's a thing where you get hit to the canvas and you're snoozing with a duvet and a pillow and you need oxygen. As much as you want to say about Anthony Joshua, he's been dropped less out of all the 3 top heavyweights. Tyson Fury has been dropped 9 times by 3 different people. Anthony Joshua has been dropped 5 times by 2 different people.
Yeah.
Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's. Let me finish. Deontay Wilder's been dropped a total of 9 times with 3 different people. Tyson Fury 6 times with 3 different people, and Anthony Joshua 5 times between 2 people. So you tell me, I never knocked out. So you tell me about this, he got knocked out and this and that. People need to start putting some respect on people's names. I don't care what you think about who's this. You go out and be 2 times unified heavyweight champion. See if you can do it, because Deontay Wilder hasn't done it. Tyson Fury, the number 1, hasn't done it. So let's go from there.
And not only that,
actually, he did.
Well, he is 2-time.
Not only that, let me get this.
Let
me get this.
Oh, you're talking about unified. I'm sorry. My
unified.
Okay.
Let me get this in.
Go ahead, Joe.
This is a very important point. Outside of Evander Holyfield, Joshua's the only heavyweight that has consistently fought as mandatories. Because even Lennox Lewis, he gave up the WBA belt because he didn't want to fight John Ruiz.
That is true.
I didn't care about that too much. But Anthony Joshua is when he held these titles, he has done everything in his power to keep them unified. And when he says he wanted to be undisputed, he's one of the few fighters in boxing today that I actually believe when he said he wanted to be undisputed. He wants to be undisputed. I have to give him credit for that.
Fair enough.
Because Wilder, in his 10 title defenses, how many mandatory defenses has he made? Because the WBC, they don't really enforce mandatories. You could be the mandatory for like 3 years before you get a shot. They still have to enforce it. So I think in his 10 title defenses, I think he's only had 2 mandatories, if I'm not mistaken.
That could be correct, but let's not
2 mandatories and 8 voluntaries.
Let's not omit the fact that they offered step aside money. They offered step aside money to Usyk. They didn't want to fight Usyk. They tried to buy him out.
We don't know that
because they wanted to.
On that note,
because unified, undisputed trumps Amando. You know this. You watch boxing, Maestro?
Yeah, I watch boxing.
Okay, then you should know why the step aside money would have been offered. It's not like they offered to step.
No, but
really didn't want to fight. If he really didn't want to fight Usyk, he would have bowed his WBO belt.
Right.
Well, did that.
I'm only saying that because Joe brought up the fact that Lennox Lewis didn't fight John Ruiz for a bigger fight as well. But look, let's not get into the weeds on this.
Lennox Lewis.
I want to go to G Funky.
They did the same thing with the IBF and Chris Bird as well, though. Yeah.
Yeah, G Funky. Let's hear your thoughts on the state of the heavyweight division.
Well, I think it's a pretty obvious 1 and 2 here in the division. You got to go Fury, Usyk. I feel like you can make an argument for Usyk to be number 1, but I'll put Fury number 1, Usyk 2. I know a lot of people are going to be mad at me in the chat, maybe some people here on the panel, but this is my list, and I'm putting Andy Ruiz number 3. All right, and the reason why I'm putting him number 3 is because I think he's got a better win than the 2 guys after him. which would be Joshua and Wilder. He's the only heavyweight out of the 5 that's actually defeated an undefeated unified champion in the division. He's the only one. He beat Joshua when he was undefeated, and he had 3 belts, 3 of the major 4 belts. So that's my list: Fury, Usyk, Ruiz, Joshua, and Wilder's barely hanging on the top 5, but I have him number 5.
Fair enough. I respect that list and the methodology. Joseph, Mr.
Yes, sir.
War a week. I'm going to go to you in a second. But first, I want to big up my brother Remy with the super chat. He says, Ronnie and the twins, by that I'm sure he means the Charlos, can't help AJ when they themselves fall short to fulfill their skills and game plan fight night. Eddie is better. Ryan knows Spanish, in my opinion. Yeah, Ryan doesn't speak Spanish. We do know that. Joseph, go ahead,
He's
man.
learning, though. He's learning.
He's learning. Poco a poco.
Poco a poco, dia a dia. Ya tú sabes.
Well, guys, and here's the difference, I think, with my list and most other people's, is I've got 1, Tyson Fury, and then everyone else a very distant 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. In my opinion, Tyson Fury, he is going to, and after, if he does stay in the sport and after he's cleaned out the division, he's going to prove to be just as dominant as Vladimir Klitschko was when he was the long-reigning champion for 11 years, if he chooses to be within the sport for the next several years. Because think about this, and just upon speaking with Sugar, he says, look, he says, all of this media that you hear, don't listen to it. Tyson Fury just wants to be left alone right now. He doesn't even want to talk about boxing at this time. So if you ask him, he's going to say, you know what? I'm not motivated. I'm not interested in boxing right now. Just leave me alone. But in reality, he says Tyson Fury is merely, he hasn't even reached his full potential in the sport yet. He's a flipping chameleon in the ring. Pick your poison with this guy. How do you want to get your ass whooped? Right? He can whoop you from mid to long range. He can use the entire ring. He's got one of the most intelligent jabs in boxing. Period. He can maul you on the inside. He can actually defend himself effectively on the inside. Okay? Pick your poison. How do you want to lose? And now he can take the lead. He can be the aggressor. He can actually box you from range if need be. In my opinion, he's a terrible style matchup for everyone else. In my opinion, it's not even a close second at this time. It's 1, Tyson Fury. Number 2 is, one of the best pure boxers in the entire sport, and a guy who looks like he's skating around the ring at times, and that's Alexander Usyk. I mean, how can you not put this guy number 2 right now? And then number 3, in my mind, is Anthony Joshua. I love his humility. I love his character. I already love his credentials so far in the heavyweight division at only age 32. This guy arguably has the best resume in the heavyweight division. His win over Vladimir Klitschko was legendary, and it was a huge shot in the arm that the heavyweight division needed at the time. He's already done so much for the sport. And in my opinion, and we'll get into this a little bit later, if I could go back to the Ronnie Shields and discuss a little bit more what they talked about. Now, I've already received clearance that I can talk about that. So we'll go back to that in a little bit if I'm allotted that time. But his humility tells me that he's not done yet. You haven't seen everything that you're going to see from Anthony Joshua. And I thought Joe Habib touched on a brilliant point that he's not, he's a lot more trainable, okay, quote unquote, than Deontay Wilder. In my opinion, and the future will show this, guys. In my opinion, Deontay Wilder, after that horrific 11-round beating that he just took, is going to prove to be damaged goods. I mean, look, they're already talking about from the rematch that his equilibrium wasn't the same. That's going to be a reoccurring problem, guys. Okay, he took a horrific beating from Tyson Fury, and in my opinion, because of the financials as well, where's he going to make that kind of money? In my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if he chose to retire in 2022. Okay, so that's who I have currently 1 through 4. And number 5, I have to agree with the Ring because of his resume and his fearless attitude. And because, you know what? He's been deserving of that WBC mandatory position, and that's Dillian White. I mean, like him or not, the guy's got balls as big as church bells. right? He's fearless. He'll step in the ring with Godzilla if it means just getting that big paycheck and getting that opportunity. So that rounds up my top 5. But I tell you what, I like G-Funky's Andy Ruiz choice because he's right there, man. I mean, Andy Ruiz is another guy who's under the radar. He's considered by most to be too risk for the reward. Too much risk for the reward. He's got some of the fastest hands in the division. He's got an iron chin. And my gosh, he is just super skilled. And he is so good at cutting off the ring and closing the distance so quickly. He is a virtual nightmare, and he's going to prove to be avoided, just as avoided as anyone in boxing. Unless you have to fight him, why would you? So in my opinion, he's a borderline number 6. But because he doesn't have those skins and those names on his resume, you have to put him at 6.
Make sure you catch the Roundtable every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on the HCP Network rotation. Channels on the rotation are on the description below.